Thank you all. Wow, what a great turnout. I'll make sure I don't tell the fire marshal how many people you put in this small area. We're going to be close to exceeding it soon. I'm just kidding. Obviously, we still have room. My name is James Cunningham. I'm your newly appointed fire chief. Many of you knew Orly Stoltz. Orly just retired after 26 years on the job. So this coming meeting and next Thursday will be my first official meeting as your fire chief. So obviously I'm proud to be here, and I've been with the fire district now for 19 years. Lived here in Florida for 23 years. Came from Western New York, where I grew up. If you were to take a quick stab in the dark, how many calls for service do? Well, let me cover the district first. Our district of North Collier, we used to be known as North Naples. But last year, January 2015, we merged with Big Corkscrew Island out to our east. Yes, it's not an island, but that's what they called it. So we merged with Big Corkscrew Island, and it's now called the North Collier Fire District, composed of 264 square miles. Other than the area of Immokalee, everything in the northern part of the county belongs in your fire district. Of those 264 square miles, it's covered by 10 stations, a total of 14 frontline apparatus, from squads that primarily run medical calls to obviously engines and ladder trucks. And yes, I am going to talk about your brand new station just up the road here, so you know some of the details of that. But out of those 10 stations, how many calls for service do you think we had in 2015? 7 a day? 10 a day, so you're looking at about 3,600. We ran 16,600 plus calls for service in 2015, and we are on trail to increase it by at least 4, if not 8% again this year in 2016 already. 16,000 calls for service. Now, obviously, most people know that we run medical. We run about 2% of fires. That's still over 400 fires that we have annually within our district. So although they talk about low percentages of big numbers still wind up being big numbers. And so obviously we're committed to making sure we're available for your fire resource. But in addition to that, we've seen this dramatic increase in all other types of hazardous response. And we have a fully engaged hazardous materials response team. Our hazmat team runs nearly 100 calls for service a year. Our primary increase is in explosions or gas inside of buildings and carbon monoxide. As technology has gotten better, a lot of hybrid cars, etc. out there, we're seeing a lot of carbon monoxide and gas related type of calls. And now that they are introducing all these new neighborhoods with all natural gas in them, we're getting a lot of natural gas in buildings. So your fire district is an all-hazards fire department. It is not just a fire rescue such as fire medical, which people most know us for, but we truly are a response agency that covers everything. If it's not a law enforcement issue, it is a fire issue. If you're living in a multi-story condominium building and you have elevators, we do lots and lots of elevator rescues. Because of our population is a little bit more elderly than most communities in Florida, we find ourselves doing a lot of public assistance. If someone falls, they can't get up, or if someone needs assistance with lifting somebody up, those calls for service are over 1,200 calls per year, just for that service alone. If you're to guess how many vehicle crashes we run in this district, how many vehicle crashes do you think we run? we run over 1,000 car accidents a year just in the North Collier Fire District. 40% of all the crashes in Collier County occur just in the North Naples area specifically. So those numbers are astronomical. When you hear about we ran 10,000 medical calls last year, we're in the top 3 busiest non-ALS transport provider in the state of Florida. So advanced life support, non-transport, we're one of the top 3. We roughly use between 1, 2, and 3, depending on the year, of the busiest providers of advanced life support in the entire state of Florida. So we are extraordinarily busy, but a lot of those calls we do know are that of vehicle accidents. They're considered to be medical in nature, but as you know, if I'm using a Jaws of Life, most people won't categorize that as something such as a medical call. A common question I was being asked as I was wandering around the room, introducing myself and handing out these flyers, is in reference to the straw ballot that's coming up here in a couple weeks. I'm never going to take a position as the fire district. We're never going to tell you to vote yes or no, but we can provide you facts as far as where things are at. Just know that your North Naples service delivery area today, as it exists, is 63% lower taxing rate than any other fire district here in Collier County. How are we able to achieve that lowest taxing rate is because we have the population density here, we have the ad valorem tax base here, So we're able to keep your taxing rate low because of our property foundation, our tax foundation is based upon multi-story buildings, many high rises in our district, etc. So that way we can keep your taxes low. The other question I would tell you about that is not on the ballot question, because they don't tell you how much it's going to cost you. The second question that we would need to ask if you wanted to support it, that ballot question is, what is it going to cost? But the second one is, what are you going to get for service? Right now, your average response time for calls for service in the North Naples area is 4 to 5 minutes. That is not the case in most areas within the county. That 4 to 5 minute response time, we want to make sure that there's not a degradation of service, and they're not answering the question of what's going to happen to service provisions and the apparatus if we're to equalize throughout the entire area. Another question has not been answered. So I'll entertain more questions if you have it. But obviously, we're proud of the fire district of what we provide. As it relates to the station that just opened up the road from you, that station alone, which is why it's interesting to ask you the numbers, that fire station alone will run over 1,100 calls for service annually, and this coming year it's probably going to be closer to 1,400. So it exceeded our expectations. That station itself has an ambulance and a fire truck that runs out of it. People wonder, man, that looks like an awful big building for 2 apparatus. We also have our EMS training is at that facility. So anytime we're doing training, which is why you see a lot of trucks that come up here, and they do a lot of their EMS in-service classes at that facility. And because of the elevation of this location, we were able to put all of our IT and support networks on the second floor of that building. So no longer do we need to take all of our equipment out when the hurricanes are coming in. It's on the second floor, and our technology group also works out of the building. So there's several functions for that, and I'll be happy to tell you that in the event there's a hurricane, if it's a landfalling hurricane category 3 or higher, we've always had to evacuate our most western stations. This station we can stay in even up to including a Cat 5 landfalling hurricane, so we can leave apparatus in the district. A landfalling Cat 5 in the past, we would have to evacuate all the way up to the inner part of the county. And so this allows us the ability to put several apparatus in that station, have the facilities that we can house people on the second floor in the event of coastal flooding and tidal surge, and be able to still be able to respond out once those situations subside. So that was the whole planning of that station, and it's going to be our primary command post during the times of storms. And for those that lived through 2004 and 2005, we exercised that hurricane response plan on a regular basis, and this would be the location where all of our command will be for all of North Collier Fire District, so that we can readily and quickly respond as soon as the waters and or the wind subside. So that was the reason for that building, and we're happy to say that it's open, functioning well, and like I said, it's much busier than what we even anticipated in its first year being open. So with that, just to not take up too much more time, I'm open for any questions. Yes?
Have you ever put the EMS into the fire department? Anywhere I live, EMS is part of the fire.
Her question is, are you ever going to put EMS into the fire department? Because where she came from, EMS and fire were all together as one. That is exactly what the ballot question asked you. The challenge that we have here, the county EMS system, transport-wise, is run by the Collier County government. There's a significant amount of funding that comes from transport, and the challenge that we have is if North Naples area, or North Collier in itself, were to do its own transport within the fire department, literally 55 to 60% of the revenue generated comes from this area. User fees and tax fees. So what happened is, if we put the two together, we cannot segregate away from what the rest of the remaining part of the services that are provided within the county. People in the North Naples area pay their medical bills, transport fees, etc. Your fire service does not charge any fee for services to go out to provide the services. Ours is solely funded by the ad valorem tax base that you spend on your annual taxes. The ambulance transport fee, however, is separate. So that is one of the biggest challenges. I can tell you that I am a strong proponent of consolidation. I'm also a strong proponent of trying to put fire-based EMS together as one. But at some point, we're going to have to overcome the challenges of making sure that there's still money to be able to provide those services for the remaining part of the county, which is why we're looking for the exact dollars. And let's put together a study that comes up with the exact dollars. But that's not what's being proposed just yet. So welcome. Other question? Yes, sir.
Can you explain about the gas grill and the electric grills? Is that a policy or a state statute? What is it?
How many people here would like to use gas grills on their patios, right? How many people have here been told you cannot use your gas grills on patio? How many people have been told you can't use the electric grills on your patios? So the challenge is, we all know that gas grills such as, propane, etc., can never be used on the patios. There was some discussion that they believe that electric grills could be used on the patios. I initially thought they were. I've done some checking. They too cannot be used on the patios. And the main reason is they don't want it to be a source of ignition for other materials on the grills in multi-unit dwellings is the biggest challenge. I will tell you that there is some discussion about that, especially as it relates to the electric side versus the gas. But as of this time, that's what the standard is, and it is something I'm going to bring up to the fire marshal, and we're going to talk more in detail. But those are national and state codes. Basically, the state of Florida adopts a national code, and we adopt a state code so that everybody, whether it's here in Naples, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, or even up in my hometown of Western New York, everyone pretty much abides by the same national standards for fire protection. And when you get into multi-unit dwellings, it creates its own issues. Single-family homes, you can do as you wish. It's obviously not recommended to use gas grills and charcoal grills, etc. But if one wishes to do that in a single-family home, that is permitted.
Thank you.
Where are you from, Western New York?
Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Back to the gas grills. We were under the impression that 10 feet out from your building, you are allowed to use the small tanks.
As long as you're not within the confines of the structure itself.
Okay.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you all.
Okay. Somebody has a question or something they'd like to say, please raise your hand. Ethan will come around with the mic and just direct your question or your issue to whomever you would like an answer from.
Question regarding landscaping. Two questions really.
Could you give your name and association?
Michael Wallace in Waverly Green.
Okay.
Landscaping regarding the Carlton Lakes Boulevard. I've heard that there's going to be some enhancements and some additional flowers planted there, which is really sparkling right now. The other question is, with regard to the perimeter of the development on Livingston Road, do we have any responsibility, or is there an easement there? Can we do anything to improve the exterior perimeter of the development along Livingston Road?
I'll let Bruce answer. Bruce runs the landscape.
Thank you, Mike. To answer your second question first, that's county property. So we in Carlton Lakes have no authority to do anything along that easement of county property outside the fence that's there along Livingston. I think that's the road that's the area you're talking about, Mike?
Yes.
In regard to your first question, we understand that some of the medians are sparse looking, and that was purposefully done because of a number of reasons. First of all, one of the things that we were trying to do with landscaping was deal with the sight lines when people were leaving the local communities and turning onto Carlton Lakes Boulevard, or turning off Carlton Lakes Boulevard onto one of the local associations, trying to lower the plants so the sight lines for vehicles and our drivers and vehicles could be enhanced. So in order to do that, at the end of last year, some of the plantings were removed at the request of the local associations that were involved. We had funds to take the landscaping out, but we didn't have funds to replant those areas, so they became mulched. And those local associations had an opportunity to say, leave the landscaping with the problem sight lines until we had funds this year to replace that, or go ahead and take it out, improve the sight lines, and we'll wait for a few months to get the landscaping. And those local associations chose to do the latter. The other thing that happens is because of the need to irrigate plants so much in the median during the dry season. Now, when we say that, of course, January wasn't a typical dry season month. It was a rainy season month, but a typical dry season means that you have to irrigate virtually every day when you put plants in the ground. So we're waiting until April to do those plantings in order to minimize the extra irrigation that's necessary. And we just got scheduled today that a lot of those medians are going to be started the end of March and 1st of April for plantings. But that's the reason, Mike. Is you have any follow-up to that?
No, I think you've answered it. Thank you.
Somebody else have a question, or?
We live on Cedar Springs, and 6 years ago when we moved in, the shrubbery along the fence was very full and helped protect not only privacy for our units, but also noise factor. We understand that those bushes have had some health issues, and they've had to bugs and viruses or whatever they call it. I would like to know what is being planned to get either these bushes or a replanting of other bushes in that area, and additionally, what is being planned about the open gate. The gate is very vital. It's being used for many of our neighbors, going over to Publix, McDonald's, the bank, wherever. But in the 6 years, we've seen several failures of putting locks on, the locks come off, and wanting to know what the master board is going to do about that.
Thank you. Let me respond to the landscape question first, and somebody else can talk about the gate. That hedge has infestation of whitefly, and whitefly is an extremely damaging pest in southwest Florida. And my understanding was a year or so ago that hedge had quite a bad infestation of whitefly. And at that point in time, the landscape committee had a couple of options: try to treat it or tear it down and replace it. And the choice then a couple of years ago was to try to treat it. So the bushes were cut back severely. It was being treated, and it continues to be treated. We're not real happy with the way it looks because the whitefly is still prevalent, but it is being treated, I believe, at least twice a year, which is what the recommended is. At some point in time, we'll have to make a decision. It's good enough to go or it's not. I've also heard some things that some different kinds of bugs can be introduced that eat the whitefly, and there are some predators to whitefly, so some of those kinds of things may be tried in the interim, but that's the status at this point. It's still being monitored.
May I ask you a question? Has the board ever thought about putting a wall in that will eliminate the issue about the shrubbery?
I'm not aware. No, I'm not aware that the board has ever had a proposal or a discussion about that.
Okay, with regard to the gate, it has been an issue for a number of years with the neighborhood watch, because we obviously would like to have it with a secure lock that is available only to residents to keep other passersby from going in and out. At the same time, we have somewhere at least one resident who likes to undo the lock, break the lock, because it's an inconvenience to have to unlock it when you're carrying groceries or going through with your bike. So however, whatever, it always was a big maintenance issue. And it still is a question among safety committee, neighborhood watch, getting this done. Up to this point, the board has not been of a mood to keep paying for the lock. We did add security, and since we've had statewide security, it certainly has decreased a number of the problems that we were experiencing, but it's still an open matter of discussion about what do we do with that gate, because in the last 2 weeks we've had problems, so it is something we need to consider further.
Another question? Gentlemen.
Hi, my name is Jack Rose, and I live at Cedar Springs Drive in Lakeview 3. My question is about your policy about people going around and checking vehicles that have a car cover on them. Some of us that don't have garages, we leave a car here. And, well, let me finish, okay?
I'm sorry.
So, and it may run into a problem because, like in my case, my registration expires in August. I'm not here in August to put the sticker on, or July or June either. But I'd be happy to send somebody a copy of my registration to indicate that the car is registered, okay? And the other part, I don't know, did somebody from the board get that statewide or somebody authorization that they're going around cutting car tops to look at license plates?
Let me
Because if
explain what the state
if
was.
they, yeah, okay, if they cut my car top, I'm gonna look for reimbursement.
First of all, I would let Ethan know before you leave your license plate tag, and they'll notify Statewood not to take the car. The biggest problem with Statewide, it's not a problem, but they've been taking cars that are parked out on the street. We have a policy in Carlton Lakes that no cars are to be parked on the street after midnight. That basically is what's been tagged, and there's if the car is going to be tagged the third time, it's towed. We started this policy early last spring, and we have towed 0 cars.
Yeah.
Okay? So
So
the whole
it's not a
idea
problem.
is, the whole idea is to educate the community not to park. Now, if you're in a carport, they shouldn't be tagging you. If you're in a driveway, they shouldn't be tagging you. They're basically tagging you if you're on the street. Or the other policy that the community has is don't park with a sign showing on the vehicle. And if that's the case where a couple of people were working, they put magnetic signs on and taken them off. But we have not towed a car. We initially had a problem down here in the parking lot right outside here, and we signed it like crazy not to park overnight. But for anybody that's heading back north that leaves a car here, if their registration or license plate expires, if you let Ethan know your name, address, the car, and the license plate, we will make sure it's not tagged. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, basically, I'm talking about a car parked in a carport. But what if it's got a, what if it's
Carport
got a...
should be the
okay.
same as a garage, it shouldn't be tagged.
Well, I know for a fact, a friend of mine, they cut his car cover to check his license.
Let
plate.
Ethan know who is, we'll inform them not,
Well,
they're not supposed
well,
to.
they're having a right to touch it.
No, they don't,
Oh,
okay?
okay.
The main
I
thing
was
is.
speaking specifically about leaving a car in a carport.
Their main job is tagging cars that are parked on the street after midnight. We had a
Yeah, that's
situation
not
when
my
they first started, they were tagging cars at 9 o'clock at night, and I said, that's ridiculous. You have people with parties, you have guests coming over and whatever, so they're not to tag any car before midnight, so we put a stop to that. The whole purpose of this is that we just don't have cars all over the place.
Oh, that's
And,
good.
and they send us a report after every visit, and then not only the situation with the vehicles, but since we've had them going around, our vandalism has been cut by about 85%. And if you look, if any of you have seen the statewide cars, they look like state trooper cars. And it's worked great. I mean, are we paying for it? Yes. But we were paying more money to replace things that were being vandalized. So, but if anybody has a complaint, let Ethan know or one of the board directors and we'll get it taken care of. There's about 4 different guards for statewide that tours our community, and they're on a schedule just so everybody knows. They're not on a preset schedule. We mix it up because we don't want particularly people that are coming into the community that don't belong here to realize, oh, there's a pattern. They're here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 2 or whatever. So we mix the days, we mix the hours. We also increase their hours during holiday weekends and school breaks. And as soon as college ends, there's usually Party City out here in the pools, and we've had a mess out there. That is stopped. So what we've done is worked. Is it perfect? No. Can we make it better? Yes. I hope I answered. Everybody's concerned over the security guard.
Yeah, pretty much, they're not gonna just be running around.
But let Ethan know when you're leaving,
Crawling
your
underneath.
car, your license plate number and whatever, he'll make sure that gets to statewide.
Well, like I say, when they have a couple of them, maybe it creates
They
a
shouldn't
problem.
do that, and they shouldn't be tinning anybody on a car.
All right, that's fine, that's okay.
Anybody else have a question?
Hey, Charlie, I have one from Mr. Edwards from Andover Drive, 7.1. Basically, the question relates to the traffic light at the south entrance. North entrance, sorry.
All right, let me give you some information on traffic. About 3 or 4 years ago, we approached the county because there's a lot of traffic going across the street from the north entrance in Delasol, and obviously a lot of traffic for us. And dealing with the Department of Transportation is a real trip in this county. And they said, well, you haven't had any fatalities or accidents there. And I asked them, what's the quota? And they needed a number of accidents. And then once the Department of Transportation said, okay, you could put a light in, and this was several years ago, the cost was in excess of $100,000. At that time, it would have to be split between Delasol and us. It's probably, I'm guessing now, what's what, $150,000. So right now, if we wanted to pay for one and Delasol wanted to pay for one, we couldn't get it because there's not enough fatalities. About 3-4 weeks ago, I called up the county again, and if any of you stop at the shop at the Strand and come out of the Strand, there's a right-hand turn lane that starts at the Strand, and it's supposed to end to cut in where Dunkin' Donuts is, and then continue down to Livingston Road. Well, you got cars doing 50 miles an hour that shoot right by. And I said, this is an accident waiting to happen, particularly when Oaks Farm opens their store in November. And I got the same answer. There's not enough fatalities, there's not enough accidents. We're planning to meet with the people at Oaks Farm in the next few weeks, and we're going to see if we can get them to put some pressure on the county. Our main concern is that people are pulling out of there onto Livingston Road are going to get nailed. It's one lane, but they don't know they're supposed to move over unless they're cutting into Dunkin' Donuts. So that's the story as far as dealing with the Department of Transportation. So far, we've run a total blank with them. But if you folks have a bunch of people you want to get rid of, we can line them up, knock them off, and then we need to throw them. Yeah.
I got a question from a resident, couldn't be here tonight, Charlie.
I can't hear you. Right on?
Hello?
I got a question from a resident, couldn't be here, concerning Carlton Lakes Boulevard on the street lighting. She walks at nighttime and it's cool, but she feels uncomfortable because it's so dark up there. They wonder what's going to be done about it. And the second question I got is, this person rents a rental car several times during the year, and about the entry stickers that they put on the cars. I know that you can't take them off when you put them on, but she don't think she should be paying every time she rents a car to get a sticker.
We passed something on the situation with the renters. If you are visiting 3-4 times a year, you're coming back to the community and you left your car back north, we have a temporary pass that could be used, and how that works is you visit our property manager, Ethan, you show him the car rental, the date you're renting it, the date you're returning the car. They'll issue a temporary plate that you can hold up, that the reader will pick up the portable tag. There's a fee of, I don't know, $10 or $15 for it, plus a deposit, just in case you don't return the sticker. We put that in last summer. Very possible a lot of people didn't know about it, but when we first put the entry tag system in, that wasn't included, and we got a lot of complaints. So if any of you go back north and you're coming back 3-4 times and you pick up a car, you can get a temporary tag. And what was the second question?
The other one about the lighting at Carlton Lakes Boulevard.
We resurrected an old committee called the Planning Committee, or long-term planning. There's about 9 of us on the committee. And we look for issues that we need to look at long-term because the demographics of this community has greatly changed, plus it's an aging community. I think something like 40% of the people, or the units have turned over in the last 5 or 6 years. And we narrowed down to 2 projects. One is the lighting issue from the south gate up to Andover Drive. And we've got numerous complaints, people are afraid to walk at night. Bruce is heading up a group studying that. The biggest problem we're having right now is getting an electrician here because we're in season and they're swamped. But we hope to have something that we can then pass on to the appropriate committee as far as costs and whatever. The second issue, and I'm surprised it hasn't come up, is one of the things that we are doing, and it's the embryonic stage, is doing a study on the clubhouse here and the workout room. And there was all kinds of rumors flying around here about we're going to do a building and we're going to have a special assessment and all this other nonsense, rumors fly. Basically what the committee is looking into is the feasibility of doing something because that workout room is absolutely jam-packed in the morning and it's tiny. People can't use it till later in the day. We have 2 things going on. Number one, if anybody's using the workout room, we have a sign-in, sign-out sheet. We've had it up for a bunch of weeks. It'll be up till the end of March. And some of the people in the committee will then do a spreadsheet. We're trying to find out how many people use the workout room, what hours, etc. There is also going to be a survey that's going to be mailed to all 800 owners, probably in the latter part of April, with a return stamped envelope to go back to Gulf Breeze. And basically, that survey is going to ask 2 residents, if there's 2 residents in your unit or your home, how you use the clubhouse, meetings, socials, and whatever. So right now, we're collecting data from the workout room, and then when we get the surveys back, I hope you'll all send it back. And we're going to take a look and see, does it make sense to do something, or are we adequate with what we have? So again, these are both in the embryonic stage, and the planning committee is a long-term, and if something is finally decided or a decision is made, then it will go over to the appropriate committee within, like something with the clubhouse would go to the clubhouse committee, the lighting would go to another committee. So we've narrowed down to those 2 topics, and there'll be information coming out as we get information back. My guess is you would probably see something happening with the lighting issue before you see anything, possibility, anything with the clubhouse or the workout room. But they're both long-term projects, and we are already established, at least if we do anything with the clubhouse or we do anything with the workout room, it would most likely be covered by reserves. So again, as we get information, we will pass it on through the Carlton Lakes media to everybody. So I'm surprised that somebody didn't ask a question on that. Yes.
Can't the people that rent cars use codes to get in?
Yeah, sure. Anybody who rents a car can use a 4-digit code. We also feel that I think hopefully you'll find that the kiosk that we put in over the summer was a little more customer friendly than the one we had before. So it's been a busy year with the entry tags and then we put the red bars up, which people were knocking down that bar at the North Gate like crazy, so we put a red bar in, so that's kind of helped. So we've had a busy year this year. Yeah, Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I live over on Asheville Road. I have a question about our landscape. Sorry. Hello? Can you hear me now? I have a question about the landscaping. Is there a reason why the master doesn't have one landscape company for the whole complex? I would think it would be a lot cheaper. We'd be able to get better rates than individual.
The reason that the whole community does not have one landscape company is because each local association is in charge of their own landscaping. There's been a discussion, not heavy discussion, about having one company, but that means then that each local association would have to give up their funding that they currently have for landscaping. It would come to the master. They'd have to give up their rights and their responsibilities for landscaping at their local level. And in the 3 communities I've lived in Carlton Lakes, I can tell you, none of those things would happen because the local associations are too proud of their own landscaping, which is rightly so. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good idea. It might be, but you know, somebody's got to get 19 different local associations together and say, you know, let's how we deal with this.
Wouldn't you think if it was hitting them in the pocketbook, it would change their mind?
Gentleman in the back.
Hello, can you hear?
Yep.
My name is Jim Neely.
No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear? Yes. Okay. My name is Jim Neely. I live in Birmingham. What? Still can't hear? Anyhow, I'd like to just make a few comments, and I want to pose a question probably that require the legal counsel to answer. Many of the people I've talked to and myself have been concerned about the impact of the Oaks Farm opening on essentially shutting down the south exit and entrance to Carlton Lakes Boulevard. And the reason I say this is I've been to the Oaks Farm, a lot of people go there, and I have made counts of per minute vehicles coming in there, and the floor space comparison between the existing Oaks facility and this facility is about 5 times larger than the surface area of the facility. And if a portion of the vehicles exiting the Oaks Farm facility here use Carlton Lakes Boulevard, that exit will essentially become non-usable to the residents and visitors to Carlton Lakes. Now, I've heard comments made that a sliding gate could not be put at the border of Carlton Lakes and the back of the property where Oaks Farm is because of a legal easement, which doesn't allow us to block the entrance and exits into the back there and prevent cars from coming in. However, in many states, easements are defined by a term called setbacks. And the setback means the easement applies to barriers put up at a certain fixed distance at the border. And depending upon what that setback distance is, there's still an option for Carlton Lakes to try and cut off that traffic by adding a sliding gate at the split between the 2 roads in a median area. But the legal counsel would have to advise us what the county or Florida law is. What is the setback distance for an easement? And if we can get an answer to that, then we can think about possibility of having a sliding gate between the 2, the in lane and the out lane out of Carlton Lakes, so that it would prevent people from Oaks Farms cutting through and exiting on Carlton Lakes Boulevard. So it will require a question to the legal counsel: what is the setback distance for an easement? And if it's say less than 20 feet, then there's an option for future planning. If that south exit becomes a disaster, we could at least have the option of putting a sliding gate that is operated by our former and perhaps returning clickers. So, we're on your clickers. Any comments? And eventually, I guess, I'd like
If there's a situation where it becomes a problem, we have to obviously get advice from our attorney. The only thing I can tell you is, for those of you who've been around for many years, we lived with a situation when it was Albertsons. They were only open for a few years, and the biggest problem we had with Albertsons is they were cutting through our community along Carlton Lakes Boulevard and going out the north gate. They can't do that now with the entry tags. So they're kind of they can only get out either onto the Mockley Road, or the road that comes in where Dunkin' Donuts is, or come out a short distance and make a left-hand turn. One of the things we found out was a couple of tractor trailers and some of their trucks were riding over the median and hitting some of the grass and shrubbery, and we're making arrangements with putting rocks or some other stuff, I think, in there, or they stopped that.
Let me just add to what Charlie's saying, and understand that many of us have not had a facility there since Albertsons left 9 years ago, so it's kind of new and it's a little scary, but just to clarify, Oaks Farms owns property in Carlton Lakes, just like we all do. I've been in 2 condo associations in Carlton Lakes, now in a single-family home, so I own my property. When I was in the condo association owns the property. Oaks Farms owns property in Carlton Lakes. They are a property owner of Carlton Lakes. They're not their own property owner. They own property in Carlton Lakes. The docks, our docks, provide for a commercial tract on that corner and tell us what we can and cannot do to that commercial tract. Our docks tell us that whoever owns that building has access from Livingston Road to where what we call the Dunkin' Donuts Road, okay? Our docks tell us that we cannot prohibit access from Livingston to the Dunkin' Donuts Road. Our docks tell us that. Oaks has to live under some of the terms of our docks, because just like any other property owner, they have to live under some terms to keep their property up, to maintain it properly, to do those kinds of things. So it's not just an easement under our docks. And the docks were approved by the county way back when this was done in 1997. That it's not an easement. That's their right to use the road from Livingston up to the Dunkin' Donuts Road, coming and going. Now, as Charlie said, we're going to try to mitigate some of those kinds of things in different kinds of ways. Do some hardscaping so we don't have, landscape issues. If you've noticed, we put up a camera. If you haven't noticed, check next time you go out. There's a video camera right now at that intersection. 9 years ago, when Albertsons was here, we didn't need a video camera at that intersection. There's been nobody there since then. So all of a sudden, now that the building used, we felt that we needed a video camera to put on video anything that happens in that intersection. They are responsible for damage. Oaks Farms is, just like any of us as property owners in Carlton Lakes, is responsible for damage. On the other, and let me just add one thing, Oaks Farms also pays maintenance fees to Carlton Lakes, okay? In the terms of around $47,000 a year. So those, it's good and bad. You got some benefits, you got some other kinds of things. That $47,000 a year, if they didn't pay those maintenance fees, we'd all be paying those maintenance fees. So it does help. But anyway, just to be, for some people who maybe haven't been here for a year, 9 years or before, just to be aware, Oaks Farms is a property owner just like all of us in this community. In fact, if they want it, they can vote in our elections. Oaks Farms can vote in our elections. They can vote on anything that comes up in the master association. They're a property owner. So just one clarification, it's not a separate entity. All right.
Hello. Hi, I'm Bob Strutzel, IBIS .1, and I just want to follow up on the Oak Farms issue. And so my comment has to do with the Realtor open house on Sundays. So the people the shoppers at Oak Farms, they are, I don't know that you would call them guests necessarily of Oak Farms, but you could have a lot of traffic during those 4 hours that those gates are open. So how will you deal with that?
I think you have to see if it becomes a problem, we'll have to deal with it, okay? Until they open, we don't know. By the way, for everybody here, Bob is the gentleman that does a great job in running our TV channel. Bob. If we see it becomes an issue, we'll have to deal with it.
Okay.
Gentleman back there, and the lady back there.
Hi, my name is Sandra from Sherborne Drive. Two things. Number one, I do a lot of walking during the day. And is there a rodent problem?
Is there a what problem?
A rodent problem recently? I've seen mice outside near the entrance during the day.
We have hold on, Debbie.
This is spring and it's palm rat season. They're not rats like we have up north. They're not sewer rats or whatever. They look like giant field mice, which I'm sure is what you saw. From now through May, they're darting here, there, and everywhere. Sometimes they all nest in palm trees, so you may look out your second floor window and have little beady eyes looking back at you. They're just, it's a native Florida animal, and they're everywhere. There are bait boxes put out to deal with them along the boulevard and in your local associations. They really only become a problem for us as unit owners when they decide to get into your attic. They're hard to get out, but they're not dirty rats or anything like that. And some of you also may have noticed the last couple of nights there's all this noise at night. Sounds like a road grader running or something banging. Those are cane toads. And this is also mating season for cane toads. And it is very loud. I noticed last night, even with the doors and windows closed, you could still hear it. And it's kind of a crescendo, and it goes from one lake to another, and it starts over again. And they're big and they're ugly. If you see them on the streets, they're like a big softball. They're also poisonous, so you don't want to let your pets get near them, and you don't want to pick them up. But each year they get worse. They're another species. This is a species I believe they brought in to control pests in the sugarcane fields. And not being a native animal, they're everywhere.
Okay, my second question was about the lighting. Andover Street does not help me for lighting. If I walk from my house to here, Andover Street lighting is not helping me. So what does that do for me?
If there's a lighting problem from Andover to here, the planning committee will certainly look at it.
It's the whole street. It's from, I live on Sherborne. It's dark from Sherborne to here. We have one light.
We understand that lighting is necessary all up and down Carlton Lakes Boulevard.
Okay. Well, he mentioned only to Andover, so that doesn't help me.
Depending on whatever gets implemented, it could be implemented in phases because of cost. We don't even know that yet. That's out there somewhere. But we understand it's necessary all up and down the boulevard.
I mean, even if you put those solar lights next to the sidewalk, that helps for something.
We tried some solar lighting, it didn't work. There were some places, we tried about 5 or 6 areas with solar lighting, and a couple of them worked and a couple of them didn't because it depended upon how much sun they got. We ran a test and we stopped it because it was a waste of money. So what we need is some lighting that's probably hip high or something like that to illuminate the sidewalks. Originally, we had a lot of decent lighting, but the trees grew. And overhead lighting, more FPL poles probably isn't the solution.
All right, my last thing is when I walk during the day, I'm on the opposite side of the street. For me to get to a sidewalk, I have to walk over the grass, back and forth, wear and tear.
The safety committee is addressing that or looking at that. We put some crosswalks in or some areas that you can have sidewalks. It not only is it a walking problem, it's also a situation where you have some people that are disabled.
Well, yeah, but I can't get across the street to the sidewalk, and if they can't see, I don't know if there's anything in the grass. I could have a snake in the grass.
Hi, I'm Jan Danell, and I'm from Lakeview. And I don't think this is anything that we can do something about, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. You mentioned the north and the trouble getting out onto Livingston. Those of us, and more than half of the residents, live south of the clubhouse here, and we've used the south gate. During rush hour, it is impossible to get out. If you, and I don't know, there's going to be accidents up by, especially when Oaks Farm comes, but now there are almost accidents daily coming out of the donut shop because the people are just driving everywhere. And if you drive up and you're waiting your turn to go on to Immokalee, and you have to wait maybe 2 lights to get on, and everybody knows that we have to do that, and you want to go east, so you've got to get in the 3rd lane, you've got to cross all the lanes. People come behind you and they actually don't want to wait, and so they'll go around you. Has anybody had that happen? Right in front of you, and you're watching for the open lane to get over there. You're watching for the cars to stop and get a pathway over. So you step on the gas and they're going around you. Will our death count towards your life? No, I didn't know if there could be signs, if there could be something down there to remind people. I've had people come out of the Dunkin' Donuts and they don't look that we're coming up that street. They just come right out. Is there something after Oaks Farm opens that, some signage or something that can,
We can talk to the people on Oaks Farm. We're planning to meet with them. I can tell you, I go out to Northgate, and if I'm leaving early in the morning, sometimes I have to wait 5 minutes to get across to go southbound on Livingston, and sometimes it takes me 10 minutes to get to Immokalee Road to make a right-hand turn. We're living in a booming community. When we all moved here, or at least a lot of us years back, it was delightful. And it's 2,200 homes were being built in Collier County last spring and summer. People that used to come for 3 months in January, February, and March are now coming in September. If you saw a lot of car carriers in September, we do it. Unfortunately, it's only going to get worse. This is a wonderful community, a wonderful town, and people are flocking here like crazy. Retail, the resales have been fabulous, and the cars, it's like, I said, it's almost going to get like Fort Lauderdale here. The county has to build more roads, particularly east and west, but they're the ones that have to decide. And a lot of the drivers here are totally oblivious. They don't know where they're going. They hit a left-hand lane and a right-hand turn. I mean, the directional signals seem to be something that nobody uses anymore. But we all go through the same frustration. I don't have an answer for you.
I didn't think you did, but I don't think we can do anything.
It's up to the county.
If we go out of Immokalee, or if we come up Livingston and make the turn, the way they designed that turn, it takes all 3 lanes to open up. And there's no light down the road. Now, if you could get your light at the north, that would help the south because it would stop the cars there and we could make the turn.
Well, you heard my comment before, we need fatalities. So.
Well, I'm offering you.
Anybody wants to volunteer, I'll take your name.
That's going to happen at the south. That one helps. Thank you.
Best thing I can say is, out of the way at the Department of Transportation and the county. They're the ones that are going to make the decisions on what to do. Yeah.
Kelly, concerning the Oak Farm, the walkway, driveway up to Dunkin' Donuts, that gully there, we see all the paper boxes, crap and all that stuff that people throw in there, who's responsible for cleaning that up?
If it's on Oak Swamp property, they are. One of the complaints that we've had since they started construction, and they're using a lot of subcontractors, is that they really haven't been diligent in keeping it clean. And we're trying to get a meeting set, and gave about 8 or 9 dates
But that's
to our property manager to talk to them. If it's a situation where it's on our property, then it's our responsibility.
So that little gully,
That swale is Oaks Farms.
it's all front.
The retaining wall is Oaks, the swale is Oaks, partway up the reserve starts our property.
The second question was about those cement blocks that they keep being pushed over.
That
We should
retaining
repair
wall,
them.
that's also on the list to talk to Oaks about.
Does anybody have a question? We have the people from Light Street here. Does anybody have a question on, yes, Paul?
Okay, I don't want to leave Lake Stream out of this. So my question has to, and this is coming from the president and CEO of Channel 9 Broadcasting. So what I would like to request is that the audio channel that you guys supply on that channel, okay, we need an easy listening station and not the one that's on there now, and also the volume on that is too low.
What channel would you like, Bob?
I don't know, easy listening. I don't know what channel that is.
Cable channel, the audio cable channel. It's not an FM channel, it's one of the cable channels, 850, 851.
By the way, in case some of you folks didn't know, a lot of the stations that were on the old sports package that was an option are now on the basic channels, the Big Ten Network, a bunch of Fox stations. So if you were paying for that before, you shouldn't be paying for it anymore. And they're supposed to issue some credits back for people that were charged in January and February. So that's a bonus that they just put in for us.
I have a live stream problem.
All right, go ahead.
My name's Sue Dunn, and my name's Sue Dunn, and I'm a Canadian, and I have a Canadian server. So what I do is I get e-messages in, but I can't send, just a second, I can't send e-messages out. And I have a friend in Fort Myers that says you have to get a different code to come into, I guess, the state. I don't want a different code because I got mail coming from there. Like, you know, for your email. So is that what I have to do, is get a whole different?
I'll take your name and number and I'll give you a call. It's going to be up to our IT department that can correct that for you.
Yeah, because we asked IT probably, they didn't really help us.
IT where? At Light Street?
For Light Street.
Okay, yeah, I can direct it to the right.
Okay.
See Mike after the meeting, give me your information, and get back to you. You have any other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Mary Rossi. I'm at the Villas, and it's to Light Stream, on demand. You can't get any of the basic channels for on demand. It's all those, I don't know, sports channels. We don't get ABC, NBC. You don't get any of those stations. Those are the stations I'm interested in because sometimes I'm watching 2 programs and I can't even record a third, or I have to watch one of the 2 programs when I'm recording something. Is there anything you're going to do about this? It's been 4 years, and every time I call, you're working on it. 4 years, you're still working on the same issue?
Well, we do not have a large library such as Comcast. The 2 local networks, NBC and CBS, require us to pay an enormous amount to put that on demand. We have given the option to some of our properties with what's called a Chromecast. A Chromecast connects directly to your TV set. It's a wireless device. And then CBS can be picked up that way, all their programming. But those 2 networks, we've got one of the networks, and the other 2 are just enormous price. As we get larger, we hope to be able to do that. You are our first community. We're now at about 3,000 subscribers in the Naples area. As we get larger, I'm sure the prices will decrease, but will certainly never be as large as a Comcast video on demand. That's just an enormous building, probably the size of this room full of servers. The hours that they have, because they have the ability to transmit all their content all over the country, whereas we are just local here down near Costco. and we just have a smaller head end, and it's just an enormous expense. You know, the other thing we can do is we offer a 6-tuner TiVo DVR. If you like to record that much content, that's a nice option for you as well.
What's the cost?
It's $24.95 for the large, the 6-tuner TiVo, and we got information we can give you after this as well.
Somebody else have a question or comment?
Hello? I got a question about, I have the NFL channel, and I know it's going to go to regular basic channel, and I have the red zone. And I know red zone is still probably negotiating for a better price or whatever, that might be extra. But I haven't got any adjustment on my bill as far as any correction. When is that going to happen?
You should get a credit for January and February in the month bill, if you don't call them, because I went through the same thing.
And the other thing is that I was here 2 weeks ago talking to a lady at one of the desks, and I wanted to look into the Major League Baseball package. If you told me it was like $200, I said, could you add that to my bill on a monthly basis? She said, no, you got to pay up front. And I don't know why you can't add it to the account.
That's just our policy. Any of the programs like that, it's an upfront cost. Because if we did month to month, you could utilize that channel for an entire month and then just not pay again. And we disconnect it. But that's a policy that we have with Major League Baseball, with the NHL, with any of those packages. It's a one-time cost, one-time fee for the entire season.
Thank you.
And it'll be good.
Hey, Jamie, you want to just talk about your email blast and the list?
Actually, can everybody hear me, or do I need this? Okay, my name is Jamie. I'm the one who basically runs the website. I put some information there for those who have not joined. What you find over there is that at least 562 members of Carlton Lakes out of 800 at least have logged in once. If you need to get, basically we try to get as many people to sign up and use the website and put the correct email address, because we still live in the state of Florida, and that means hurricanes. A lot of people come and go, vacations, northerners go for the summer, visit the kids, things like that. If you're signed up and anything happens, because we've had a hurricane pass through here before, the first thing that all of those that live here around was spending is my property okay? Is my property okay? Not if everybody else was okay, just the property. With this, we can inform everybody. We have stuff in place that can go send local association can give me and contact me a quick report and say, hey, in my, let's say, Birmingham Drive, this building had minor damage, this and that, nothing to worry about. I send it only to that. Or I can send a general report to everybody in the community. There's a lot of stuff that the website can do, but it only helps if you there. With you there, we can inform you of everything that's going on. Over the last, I would say, 2 years, those who've been here for a while can see the number of increase of emails that we've actually been getting and being sent out all the time. So the information is flowing, but we need you to join. Because the last thing you want to do is be someplace else and worry about what's going on over here. We can inform you. There have been many instances where we had emergency. Alligators on Carlton Lakes that people were feeding them. Wow, you will be surprised with stuff that we come across. So having that email can send an alert to everybody and keep everybody safe and keep them informed. So please, if you have not joined, please go pick up a little bit. It's like a little business card there. It's got all the information that I need. Just to let you know, any Carlton Lake resident has to give me the information, and then I verify that against the county records. The reason why, I believe that all our emails are private property and should be guarded. So just because somebody says, hey, send me one, does not mean I'm going to give you one until all the information is verified against the county records. That way it keeps your information safe and your neighbor's information safe. So again, any information right there, and I do update for any of those who like to send emails out. A lot of the associations know and the committee know. Sundays and Wednesdays are the days that I update the information. There's too many of us and only one me. So plan accordingly. I'm always willing to help anybody and train them and stuff like that. But again, any information, email me. The email is listed there, and I'll take any questions that anybody has. There you go.
One thing we could use some help from you folks. We have a committee called the ARC. It's a committee of 5 people, and they are responsible for checking applications that any of you might have if you're changing the exterior of your property. And because of health reasons, we've had several people that have had to back out. So we need some help. We would like to get a couple of volunteers if we can to join the ARC. It's not a difficult committee. They meet once a month for about an hour. And their main job is just making sure that the applications that people put through, and those are for like storm shutters, checking the exterior of the property, that kind of stuff, that they're abiding by the rules and regulations. And first it goes to the local association, then it goes to the ARC. So we had a standing committee for many years, and as I said, we had a couple of people that had to back out because of health reasons, and a couple of people who decided to move back to their hometown. So if some of you can help us out, we'd appreciate it. John is sitting next to Jamie, and if some of you would be good enough to, he can give you more information, step up, we could really use some help. And the main reason also is if somebody has an application in here that they want approved, and we don't have enough people on the committee, you're not going to get approval until the ARC approves it. So and you don't have to be a full-time resident to be on the ARC. As long as we have 3 people out of 5 around for a meeting, or it can be via the telephone or whatever, to approve the applications, we can really use some help. Somebody else, anything else have a question or comment?
Yeah, Charlie, I want you to clarify for everybody that is, people have to be a full-time resident to join any other committees and be part of the solutions instead of usually part of the problems.
No, as a matter of fact, our master board will change our annual meeting next week. There's 7 directors. We're going to have a couple new people join the board. Debbie is not here full-time. She communicates via telephone. We have a board meeting. Another lady's coming on the master board who will be leaving in May or June. So as long as we have a quorum, which is 4, we can hold a meeting. We try to get everybody involved via telephone or whatever. As far as local committees, most of the committees meet during the season. A lot of committees don't meet at all during the summer. Same thing on your local association board. Some of them meet 3-4 times a year. So meetings are called based on need. I think the master normally we run 10 or 11 meetings a year. So you don't have to be, there's a thing you have to be a full-time resident. Absolutely not. Most of the people on committees are not full-time residents. Anybody else? Question raised up? Yes.
My question is to the board, but I don't want to be, because I'm wanted in a 3-state.
You in the witness protection plan?
Yes. I'll stand up. I am questioning the bocce court and why $50,000 is going to be used to repair that. Before you ask somebody, I did a little math, and as far as I know from the last board meeting, I think there were 38 people that really make use of it and have their little, in the mornings, use it in a social group. If I'm wrong with the number, I think it's about 40. It comes to $1,250 for each of those people. And I can see better use of $50,000 for lights, what we've been talking about. And I know $1,250 just for the 40 people. If you put it down to 800 people, it's not that much money. But it just doesn't seem right that 40 people can have that much money for a bocce court. And I think it's nice for the community to have something updated, but I don't think $50,000 is the right amount at all.
It's $50,000 for 800 and some people.
That's correct.
Nita, let Jerry address it.
The amount of people using the bocce courts right now is well over 70 people. And that includes the people that are not in the scheduled club or the
Sir,
scheduled.
I'm just going by the number I heard at the board meeting.
Okay, well, now
last
you're hearing
month.
something a little
But
different.
70 still does not warrant $50,000.
Okay, it isn't just for those 70 plus people. And really this time of year, if you go by there in the evenings, it isn't scheduled use, but there's many, many people using it. But we have to be also sensitive to the people that come here considering purchasing a home within Carlton Lakes. And I've been here frequently when realtors bring people in and they're trying to make this look as inviting as they can. I'm not only within the bocce organization here, but also Southwest Florida Bocce Conference. So I do speak from some 12 years of experience with the bocce organization in this area. And I can tell you that a lot of people are interested in it. And the more things we do to make our home area appealing to people, the better we protect our own values. So these courts were put in 12 years ago, and they were done before there was very much known about the drainage needs of bocce courts and a lot of the supporting information around the courts. We're going to be doing this year, we will be putting courts in that will last many times longer than the ones that are there now, and it'll be a more appealing use for the people in the community and people thinking about coming into the community. There's been a number of articles, I don't know if you've noticed them in the newspaper, about the growing interest in bocce within all of this county. And it is a very involved, we're part of 24 communities now within our part of Collier County. And when I first went over the board for the Southwest Florida Bocce Conference, we had 8 member communities, now we're at 24. So you have to recognize the amount of demand of this. I'm assuming you haven't played bocce, so you don't really
I
have
have, sir,
appreciation.
and
Oh, you have
I
played?
just feel $50,000 is over the top.
Okay, well,
And I
that's,
think that you should
trust me, I
rethink.
feel that you're right to feel that way. I'm just trying to explain to you
Well, I don't
why
think I'm the
we
only
look at
person
this
that
in
feels that way,
a
sir.
return fashion, and we think it will benefit us far more. And I'll be glad to talk with you for a long period of time after this. And I can show you the records to prove it. There's communities coming in all the time. We have 8 standby communities that want to join the 24 that's in it now. This is a strong interest, and the more we appeal to people's interests, the more value we'll have in our property.
We can argue all
First
night on this.
To pay
Yes.
for it and then it would be paid.
In the back.
Can anybody, speaking of popular upcoming sports. Yes. And I know we have a lot of tennis players, and many of us are getting older and who are avid tennis players. And pickleball seems to be very, very important to a lot of people coming to live in Florida. I being one of them. And I'm just asking if the board could consider one of the tennis courts would be equivalent to 2 pickleball courts. Yes. Because pickleball courts are half of the tennis court. And I think that we would find a lot of our residents would really like to be able to play pickleball. And it's just something for you to think about. I'd like to see some show of hands here, how many like pickleball? Okay, we've got pickleball people. So if you would just give that some consideration.
This question came up at the last annual meeting. I happen to be the chair of the tennis committee. And frankly, in the high season, the tennis courts here get pretty much a fair amount of use. So there's a group of people that are going to get shortchanged if you talked about it. Second of all, you can't play on hard true pickleball. You've got to convert it to an asphalt court. Now, That said, Marcia Moore took her ruler and went out in the parking lot here and determined that on the far side out here, off time, you can construct in the parking lot 2 pickleball courts for play. So you have to ride your bike up here, but it could be done. And they could be stretched out there because, as it was pointed out, that you can get 2 pickleball courts out of 1 tennis court. It doesn't make a lot of sense to take what we've spent a great deal of time and effort to do to get these things to work properly, which didn't work when we got them from the developer. Okay, and they are all clay. And frankly, having played in most of the tennis courts in this town, we actually have some of the better tennis courts in Naples, if you really want to be honest about it. So I'm not really advocating taking it down. I am aware of the fact that pickleball is coming up, and I'm a senior. I'm getting a little too old. Our tennis player emeritus fell in his driveway the other day and boogered up his knee for a good while. That's Val Moore. And he's a tennis player. But it's his wife who said, we have the ability, if we want to get a couple of nets and so forth. We had referred the matter back to the planning committee last fall to go ahead and take a look at that. We are aware of the fact that currently pickleball is being played very rapidly over here at Veterans Park.
Yes.
And I guess down at Fleshman Park as well. And I'm aware of the fact that in town, at some point, there's going to be a national pickleball tournament coming up. Now, how many people will actually go out and play and how many want to actually take and set up down here, that's another matter. But I don't think it's advisable necessarily to talk about turning one of your tennis courts and have to shut off all the water and go to an asphalt situation when you already have fairly high demand use for those in prime time. That's the only response I can make. Well, we can certainly look at doing the parking lot out here or find another way of doing it.
I'll second that.
Gentleman over here. Ethan. Gentleman over here.
This gentleman in the green has had his hand up.
Jerry Grandy, I'm in Edgewater. I'd like to add a little information here and also make a couple of comments. First of all, I really think it's a good thing that you guys are doing to have this kind of a meeting. The board meetings are great, sparsely attended, but great. This kind of a meeting where everybody has an opportunity to speak openly, I think is really helpful. And I think all of you have taken this much time to come here and do this. I really appreciate it. There have been a number of things that have happened in the short time that I've been here. I got involved a little bit with the Safety and Security Committee about a year or more ago. There were a number of issues that were happening. There was some vandalism. There was a great deal of vandalism, actually, that was happening. And there was a lot of concern about whether or not we really had a gated community or whether we had a community with a gate. And so as we looked into it, what we discovered was that the perimeter of Carlton Lakes is very porous. It's porous in a number of different ways, and a number of different things can be done about those places that are porous. Some of the original fencing is gone. Some of the walls were never quite installed. There were reasons why some of it was left off for a period of time, but that was never corrected. So anyway, the committee spent a great deal of effort looking into the possibility of increasing perimeter security. And in doing so, came up with a number of different staged plans. It included various plantings that would be with county-approved native plantings. Some of them would be for density, some of it would be prickly stuff that would discourage people walking through. So plantings were a part of it, fencing was a part of it. It included multiple current gaps being closed. And it included gates at the north and south entries and the Strand area, pedestrian gates, and also increasing the security of the north gate. The total estimated cost, and there were bids were gotten for these items. Total estimated cost was about $120,000 to do it all, big number. My understanding, although I'm not sure how this exactly happened, somehow some part of this got to the budget committee and was considered and decided that it was not something that was to be addressed at this time. But the full report certainly never got to the budget committee because it wasn't released. So I'm not sure what the budget committee saw, but presuming they saw a big number like that, I can understand why there'd be a reaction against it. However, if you figure, and I've heard this figure multiple times, so I trust that it's relatively close, 800 units in Carlton Lakes, roughly. If you figure 800 units, that would be about $1,500 expenditure from Carlton Lakes funds to per unit. In other words, that's what would be spent out of the big Carlton Lakes budget for the benefit of each unit, $1,500. To Jackie's point, relative to Bocce, I think you can see where I'm going with that. However, let's just respond to what this young lady had to say earlier about the Strand Gate and the questions about the Strand Gate. In recent times, I think Debbie can expand on this if needed. There have been several incidents that are related to both the Strand Gate and other openings that we have. There have been a couple of stalking incidents. Is that correct, Debbie? Yeah. Including harassment. There's been vandalism again. And what we can say is that what we tried in the interim, which is the increasing of security patrols, has been very helpful. It's changed the dynamic immensely. But I think it's also clear that there's an element that's still seeing us as a target and an available target. And so we need to address it. In the full perimeter addressing of the security of the community, the $120,000, $8,000 of that was earmarked for the Strand Gate. And that was to include camera, lights, and a locking system that would be operated the same as our new gate. So it is feasible to do this. And if you take that $8,000, that over 800 units, for the benefit of 800 units, you'd be offering $10 per unit out of the big Carlton Lakes budget for that. So I just think it's important that this information be out there. It's not that nobody's thinking about these things, and it's certainly not that the people on the board are standing in the way of things. There are many, many things that are happening in this community that are happening because of all the work that they do on a volunteer basis, and we appreciate that. But I also think that it's important that people understand that for a relatively small expenditure, we can certainly handle the Strand Gate. And for an expenditure that I think is actually quite reasonable is the possibility that we actually could have a secure and gated community. It's not to say nobody's going to ever find their way in. They're going to have a hell of a time getting out. But I think it's a worthwhile expenditure and something that should be considered.
My recommendation, the budget committee meets usually end of September, beginning of October.
the committee chairs gather information, and they, chairpersons, and they submit. If you have a project, we were talking about $100,000, $150,000, you're talking about $8,000. My recommendation is you put in several projects and break it up. Like you said, the $8,000 for the Strand. I was on the budget committee for many years. If I saw a project that comes in for $150,000, I get shell shocked. You're not going to be able to get something with that kind of an expense all at once. You do things in sections. Everybody wants a lot of things, and you also have to be conscious that everything costs money. So the best thing to do, and this is for anybody that's on any committee here, is number one, come up with proposals, things that you want, and then realize it's going to go through the budget committee first, and then once they approve it, it goes to the board. And also be conscious that we're trying to keep the quarterly assessments reasonable. If we came and approved the budget and everybody was getting hit with a $50 bill 4 times a year, we'd have pandemonium. So people are very reluctant to spend a lot of money on quarterly assessments, so we have to be conscious of that. And we're trying to do things in stages. We're also an aging community. I think the community started in 1997, so things have fallen apart and need to be replaced. So we're not going to be able to do everything for everybody, and we'll try to do as much as we can. There's a false pretense with gated communities. Everybody's, no, you're gated communities, security. You very rarely hear anybody on the board use the word security, because it's not a security situation. The gates are basically traffic control. I was involved years back about putting some of the fencing up that we have now. Some of it probably needs replacing. There's a lot of resistance about totally fencing in the whole community because you look like a prison. So there are things that should be done, and there are things that probably won't get done. And the safety committee is very good, and I think you should, again, based on what your priorities are, or you think your priorities are, put it through that way in the budget committee.
There was a great deal of sensitivity given to both the dollar number of the total project and the aesthetic effect of fencing, plantings, etc. Those things were addressed. And however they did not get presented, I can't speak to that. And it doesn't matter to me. We are where we are today. The information is still available. The information can still be acted on.
One of the things that the landscape committee, and I think also the safety committee found out, there are areas where people can get in here that are dedicated as preserves. And you're not allowed to put a fence up within 10 feet of the preserve, so that's an issue. But between the landscape committee and the safety committee, there should be ways to improve some of the problems. I don't know if they're eliminating all of them.
Yes, the question of fencing and preserves is key, and it's something that we got into deeply in the course of this, and it was included in the proposal. But as I said, we are where we are. Let's try to move forward. I'd like to see if there is a sense of the community that's here that we should move forward with something like this.
Well, I think everybody will agree with you. I mean, everybody wants more security.
Then does it go to the long-range planning committee or what?
Excuse me? No, it should go through the safety committee, and as I say, if you have 4 or 5 different projects, I would hand them each one as an individual and not as a total package with a cost, and let the budget committee, I mean, somebody from the safety committee should be in front of the budget committee and say, hey, here are 4 or 5 projects, I'm just throwing out a number. This is our priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They could approve all 5, they could approve 3, they could approve none. But that's how I would present it.
We offered the ability to have us present, because none of us were going to be here at that period of time when the budget committee was meeting. We offered to make ourselves available either by phone or video conference, whatever would be best. We had a video proposal prepared along with documents that could be followed along. All of that was available, and none of it was used.
Okay. Right. One more question, I think we'll wrap it up.
I'm still running by 3 states, but nevertheless, I agree with these folks. This is the first I've heard
First of all, $50,000 for a bocce court. And I'm going to play devil's advocate here, so forgive me. Sports, bocce, tennis, what have you, pickleball, that's important. Our exercise room is important too. But I think our public safety is also important. If you live in the area we do, $8,000 for a gate and a camera, there should be no question as to what the priorities are here. So I think I'm going to say to you, sir, I will work with you. We're going to get this in front of the budget committee. And I would appreciate a lot of support from you folks, because obviously, you know, there again, we have to look at priorities. And I'm questioning some of the information that I'm getting today. I'm really questioning some of the decisions.
Just a show of hands. Would you like this kind of meeting to be done once a year? We have enough out of it to, right. They said we haven't done one of these in 7 or 8 years. We had no idea how many people were going to come. We had, I think, close to 100. Anybody that has any issues, don't be shy. You know, email a board director, a committee member, whatever. We're only as good as the feedback that there's a lot. I've been in the community 14 years. And I don't know 3/4 of the people in here. I've seen for the first time. It's wonderful. So you can help by joining a local association, by joining a committee. We need all the help. We're all volunteers, and we need your input and we need your help. So with that, we'll close this, and there's some material in the other room. Feel free to make contact with whatever you like. And thank you all.